So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jan Nemirovsky. I'm Education Coordinator at the Textile Museum of Canada. And we are joined today by Charlotte, who is our placement student from OCAD. And Charlotte has put together this wonderful workshop about reusable fabric wrapping that she's going to share with us. So I'll pass it over to Charlotte. We're going to do some fun configuration of different camera views throughout this teach-in. So please bear with us. I ask that everyone keep themselves on mute unless they'd like to ask a question, and then you can unmute yourself and go right ahead. You can also put anything in the chat, and I'll see that and bring it to Charlotte's attention if that's relevant. All right, so I'll share this presentation.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for the introduction, Jan. Like they said, my name is Charlotte, and I am currently doing a textiles minor at OCAD University, where I'm also the student sustainability representative, and working this fall with the reuse program has been really wonderful because it's a combination of those interests for me. And so are the sustainable textile teach-ins. So I really appreciate you all coming today. I felt like it was a perfect sort of holiday activity. Fabric wrapping is not something that I had done previous to this year, but now that I've done research on it and practiced it, it's like honestly an incredibly simple way to avoid using paper wrapping, and it looks so gorgeous. So I'm going to be using this full time moving forward, and yeah, I'm excited to bring you guys on board. Yeah, these are also just a few little examples of projects that I've done, but we can focus on fabric wrapping. So if you go to the next slide, why use fabric wrapping? So if you're here today, I feel like you are already conscious of reducing your environmental footprint. And I think there's something really wonderful about using sort of that giant stash of fabric that we all have in our closets somewhere. And also just like those fabrics that you buy that have such beautiful prints, and then you have nothing really to do with them. I know I have so many of those where I think I'm going to make fun pants, and then I don't end up making fun pants. So this is like a really great craft to do with those things. It's also just really beautiful. I'm going to show a few examples later in the presentation of things people have done on Pinterest and Instagram, and it can be a really nice alternative to fabric wrapping that just also conveys sort of the effort you put into someone's gift and how much you care for them. It's a use for leftover fabric, and then also developing an appreciation for the multifunctional. There's two cultural traditions that I'm going to be showing in a few minutes, and both of them emphasize these fabrics as one-off pieces, as well as items to be reused either as headscarves or as tote bags, or even as placemats in some cases. And there's just something, as you all know, reuse is so important, and changing our mindset around sustainability, the only way we're going to get there is if we actively, we can't really buy our way to consumption. So using less and repurposing the things we already have is a really key element. So wrapping as tradition, the two main traditions, and I know that there's so many cultural traditions that involve wrapping, but the two primary ones that I came across are Furoshiki and bojaji. And Furoshiki is Japanese, bojaji is Korean. So if you go to the next slide, Furoshiki is probably the one you've come across in the past. It's gained a lot of popularity recently just because it's obviously an eco-friendly alternative, but it was originated in Japan around 710 BC. And it did not originate as a gift wrapping. It was actually a fabric that you would bring to a communal bathhouse, and you would use that fabric to wrap up your clothes while you went to go use the bath so that no one would get confused. And then when you came back, you'd be able to stand on your fabric as you got dressed again. So you could see this beautiful print over there of someone holding a furoshiki, and then on the left for me, maybe right for you, there's an example from Goody World, and they're just a modern company that sells a lot of eco-friendly products. And I found they really did a nice job of just using these simple cottons as fabric wrapping. And if you go to the next slide, so the term furoshiki, as I was saying before, came from furo, which means, shiki, which means bath, and to spread. And then I also really love this image because it just shows how furoshikis are used well beyond the holiday season as tote bags and carriers. Like there's these wild videos of people just like buying their fruits at the grocery store and then creating their tote bags like on the spot, creating bags for all different types of shapes. And they don't need to use plastic. So this is, as in 2006, the Japanese minister was really pushing this as a cultural tradition that can also be applied as a sustainable solution. And even if we have time, I'm going to show you this very funny video at the end of, it's like a government official video where they have all these just like government ministers showing you how to do furoshiki in their like suits and ties and everything. But ultimately, anyone can do it. And yeah, we'll practice today. So on the next slide, bajaji roughly translates to wrapping or covering cloth and is an overarching name given to this type of stitched textile. So it's played an important tradition in Korean culture and has been used to wrap, carry, and store objects, as well as religious and ritual marriages. And the function of these items, the functional items were made not as a pastime hobby, but were an integral part of a daily life. And you'll notice the big difference between most bajaji and furoshiki is that the bajaji is often a type of patchwork. There's very often different symbols and fabrics and different even like prints that are involved, whereas furoshiki is very often these like standard 30 by 30 inch fabrics that are used. This one on top, the one with the pink squares, I was going to read a little bit more about it because that's actually one of the oldest surviving examples of a marriage bajaji. And I just wanted to include this paragraph where they say, according to Christina Summer, Principal Curator of Design and Society at the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney, the section of shapes and the choices of colors were essentially a creative endeavor with jogakshbo, which is one of the subsets of bajaji. However, the fine stitching of the many seams was more akin to prayer, an act of dedication and devotion through which each stitch contributed to an accumulation of blessings in the final work, which is just such a gorgeous sentiment that like with every stitch, you're contributing to an overall feeling that you want to give your daughter or friend. And then later on, they say mothers, aunts, and grandmothers would have made wrapping cloths to give their daughters who, when married, would often be cut off from their own family. These textiles went with them, remained one way of linking the families together after marriage. With little control over their own lives, women would have to rely on the hopes that their prayers and the symbols of the pok, good luck, included in the work would benefit the recipient. The quality of the wrapping cloth that the bride took with her could also help win respect from her new family. So these were very, very important cloths, as you can see. And I think there is something quite stunning about how a lot of them are handmade. And even now that it's possible to do these by machine, there's still a lot of artists and makers that will continue the tradition by hand and will really put in the effort to have a little visible seam. And it's kind of hard to tell on this one, but it's like a pink, obviously a pink fabric, but they used a yellow thread so that you can really see all the handiwork that was put into it. So if you go to the next slide, I wanted to give this example just because, as we were saying, bajaji is often for gifts, often for important documents, but it can also be used just as a general covering. And with this one, the middle circle is actually a waxed paper, and it was just for food. So this was like the most beautiful Ziploc bag you could possibly imagine. Yeah. If you go to the next slide. Oh yeah, and then this image, this is more of a modern bajaji, and I don't think they're using it as a wrapping cloth, but rather as a curtain or just as a art piece. But what I wanted to emphasize here is just the fact that it's a single cloth, and bajaji can be a lined cloth. It can be more of like a quilted object with a front and a back, but often it's just a single layer, and you use either a French seam or a flat felt seam to achieve that so that both sides of the fabric are equally presentable. And we'll explore those two types of seams later in the presentation. But yeah, this is a really gorgeous piece. And then wrapping as art, I wanted to just give a few examples that I've encountered online of like really talented makers in case you want to go doing your own research after this. So a non-extensive list. Yuming Lee has an account and she's from California and she like really takes on a modern approach to bajiaji. So as you can see here, she's like done a lot of sort of quilting work. She also often does these sort of monochromatic effects. And she's also taken the tradition and changed a lot of the patterns for her modern needs. So like this one with a bow on it, I've never seen that before in the research I've done, but I find it's absolutely stunning and kind of like gets the wheels turning about the types of things you can do with these basic techniques. She also hand dyes a lot of her stuff, which is really cool. But if you're interested in her, she also has a ton of tutorials and free patterns online. So I really recommend her work. The next slide is Boku, who is an artist in Toronto. You may have heard of her. She has like a little store with her husband, and she often demonstrates her different techniques on Instagram. And I thought this was worth showing because she also did it by hand. And if you look really closely, you can see each one of her stitches. And it's crazy because it's like this big and it probably took her like 7 hours. But if you received it, I feel like you couldn't possibly throw out something that beautiful, you know? At least I couldn't. Okay, and then Misubi Kiln is not an artist, they're a company, but they often hire very talented modern Japanese illustrators to do these really original prints that they then turn into furoshiki. So if you're looking to buy a furoshiki, I really recommend their products, or even the idea of like creating your own print, whether it be block printing or embroidery. Obviously, the opportunities are endless when it comes to fabric, as we all agree at the Textile Museum. But yeah, I just thought this was a cool image and like fun to see how the illustration can also fit into the wrapping. You know, like there's some bajiaji for children specifically where the finished piece ends up like looking like a little animal that's like tucked in because you fold it in a certain way, and I find that really lovely. Yeah, okay. These are just Pinterest examples. I really enjoy a lot of them. I think what makes them so special, in my opinion, is the fact that they add these little decorative elements that just like tie it all together. So whether it's like the little fern or yeah, those berries, obviously on the next page, I think they use like dried oranges. Yeah, so you can make these really quite elegant. And I think sometimes there's a fear that it's going to look like you just like wrapped it up in an old like sheet, for instance, but even in the bottom example, yeah, just by adding an orange, you can really elevate the look, I find. And then the one on top with the orange and green, obviously is a very simple technique where they just cut a green square and an orange square and then sew them together, flip them inside out, and use that as their fabric. But just by having that small detail, just that little difference of the contrasting colors means that your bows and your knots are going to be so much more accentuated and that much more beautiful. All right, okay, we're going to start with the basic technique. So if everybody would like to grab a rectangular object, something like a book, I'm going to be using this magazine right here. It's an Apartamento magazine. Oh, I didn't realize it was obscene. And a fabric that is 30 by 30 inches. That would be very helpful to learning the next technique. Okay, so in terms of materials, quite simple. Obviously fabric, your gift, scissors, a ruler is pretty important because you want it to be exact dimensions. Needle and thread, that's only if you're going to do the bajiaji techniques. You really don't need it for furoshiki. A sewing machine also, if you want to finish your edges, you could do that. But if you don't, I find it still looks quite nice. So if you have a lot of gifts to give, don't bother. But if it's a few special gifts, then definitely just doing a classic hem on the seams is a good move. A rectangular object, yeah. And if you can also gather a few cylindrical objects or wine bottles, and then a few objects that are maybe more unconventional sizes, we can play with those as well. Then the next slide, what kind of fabric? So you can use almost any kind of fabric for this as long as it is thin enough to be folded. I would recommend starting with cotton because anything outside of cotton like can often be slippery and just like difficult to use. That being said, a lot of the times the fancier furoshikis are done with silk or organza, and that can look really stunning. So after practicing with cotton, I challenge you to use some silk. And then of course, it doesn't just have to be scrap fabric. So you could be using a scarf, even certain tea towels, really big napkins can work too, and upcycled fabrics from the reuse program at the Textile Museum. You guys, there's so many deals there. I'm sure you've all been, but there's so many incredible fabrics and they're incredibly affordable. So I highly recommend that. They did not tell me to do this. Fabric dimensions. Okay, so for a small gift, like sort of the size of a tissue box, I'd say it has to be around 19.5 by 19.5. For a medium-sized gift that is more the size of like a shoe box, 30 by 30 should work. And then for like a really large gift or two gifts, like 2 wine bottles or something like that, 35 by 35 should work as well. So I would say, yeah, if you wanted to screenshot that, those are the good sizes. Hemming, I'm sure you all already know how to do this, but sometimes it's nice to get a little refresher. Hemming by hand, it's basically the same as hemming by machine. I usually fold it in by like 1/2 inch, iron it down, fold it in again, and then sew it. So if we want to get your rectangular object, I have my book, and then I'm going to be using a 30 by 30 cloth, but you can test out another size cloth if you'd like. Roughly, I'd say you want to use a fabric that is approximately 2.5 times bigger than your object. That's kind of like the basic math rule you could go by. All right, so that's what we want it to look like. And then we can watch this 9-second video first and then actually try it. So here is the quick taste. I think it's pretty straightforward. This one, compared to some of the others, this one really does seem like very similar to using regular fabric wrapping. But okay, here's my rectangular object. Now we're going to test out our multi-camera setup. Okay, so I have my cloth here. Oh, later. This is fabric I bought at the Reuse Depot. And I'm just going to set it up flat. Also, I feel like it goes without saying, but obviously if you iron your fabric first, it's going to hold the edges much better. The edges, what am I saying? The folds. Okay, so do that like that. Then you're going to place your book basically in the middle. I feel like this is one of the simpler techniques. Place it right in the middle. And then you are going to pull your side piece. You can kind of fold it to make it fit better, or you can just push the whole thing, pull the whole fabric corner over and then fold it under the book. Yes, so you folded it over once. And then with this side, you're going to fold the triangle in until it like touches the edge about. And then you could put it over the top, or you could fold it again. Wow, I feel like my narration, I tried doing this earlier and I think I did it much better. Now I'm just like relying on the fact that you can see my hands. Okay, then with both sides. And then here you're gonna kind of use your fingers to create crisp edges. And then lift it up, hold it here. For anybody that's like often making ponytails in their hair, it feels like a similar process. Pull pieces up. And then you make a knot. You can pull pretty tight and it creates these really nice draping effects. And then the second knot. You can kind of fluff out your knot, but there it is. Oh, this way. There you are. And then you have a little pocket here where you can put like a little envelope, holiday card, or whatever little details you had. And of course, if you wanted a smaller bow, you could just go with a smaller fabric. But that is the first technique. Voila. Does anyone want to put a thumbs up if that was doable, followable? Because the next one is a bit more challenging. Jan, if you want to put the presentation back, there is another snippet of the next technique. So the next technique is for 2 books. Yes, okay. And this technique is honestly very cute. When I found information about it online, it wasn't to be used as a gift bag. It was actually just to be used as a book carrier. And you can see from the picture that it looks quite nice like that too. Okay, that was a very quick video. So we are going to do a much slower version right now. But basically, you want it to be a little bag. Okay, so for this technique, I would say go with 2 books that are about the same size. They don't totally have to be the same width, but the same size is important. This is like a funny mashup. Whoever's getting my gift, get a job, learn about tweeting. Okay, so for this technique, you want to start by placing them in the middle next to each other with like about 1.5 inches, I'd say, between them. And then you flip them out so that they're spaced out properly. And then you're going to wrap the fabric like you did with the last one under the book. You want it to be pretty tight, so you can kind of take your time. For anybody that likes or appreciates origami, I feel like this is a really fun process. It's like origami with a whole new set of materials. All right, and then you fold the books inwards again, but this time they're wrapped. And then like last time, you bring in the sides, but you're going to be bringing them towards the middle, and then you can twist here or choose not to. I find it makes it feel like slightly more secure, so I twist it. And then you flip the book over the top, and then you get these cute little handles. I make this knot properly. Obviously, if you take your time, these are nicer folds. But here we go. You got your little briefcase, fabric briefcase with 2 books in it. I think this is kind of adorable. Voila.
Hang on, I'll take my
That's
messy
awesome.
background off. So
Yeah. No, oh my God, I feel like yours is nicer than mine. That's perfect.
I could barely keep up, but I missed the first one, but now I think doing the second one, I figured out how to do the first one too.
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I might have gone quickly. Yeah, that one looks great. Sarvanas.
Nice.
Use this little basket. Okay, the next one is going to be, I believe, a bottle of wine. Jan, can you confirm?
I can confirm. Also, there's a question in the chat that says,
Yeah.
do you flip forward or back at the end?
It doesn't really matter which side you flip. You just want both books to be facing each other again. Did that help? Yeah. Okay, so this one is sort of perfect for like all the Christmas party, dinner parties people are hosting these days. Also, I find it really, even if you have a mediocre bottle of wine, if you put in the effort to do a beautiful wrapping, I feel like people really appreciate it, and it's immediately a nicer gift. Yeah, I feel like that video speed was like slightly better than the book one. Here we are. And like I said before, like obviously if you iron it between, it'll look better. Here is my bottle of wine. So you're going to place it in the middle, and of course it's kind of hard because it's a cylindrical object, so it's going to float around a little bit. There we go. Okay. Then you're going to wrap it from the bottom. And with this one, more than the others, I find it is important to kind of use your hands to cradle the object of it. And then you're going to bring the top the same way. If you want, you can kind of fold it. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. Fold it over a little bit. And bring that down. I'm curious for people in the chat also if you had ever received something that was Furoshiki wrapped before, or if you've ever seen it in your own day-to-day life. Okay, and I'm gonna take the sides. I feel like you might be starting to get the handle and like realizing that a lot of these have very similar maneuvers. So you're holding both sides really tightly, and then you're going to go one over the other, but kind of pulling as tightly as you can while you do that. And then flipping the bottle over. I'm sorry I'm going so fast. I think I did a few of these for TikTok, and I feel like I'm trying to like do TikTok speed videos. All right. And then you fluff out your knot. Oh boy. And there you go. This nicely wrapped wine bottle. Ta-da. We're back. The next one is for 2 wine bottles, in case anyone wants to go pick some up. Ooh, I've seen some people in the chat. Yes, I have. It's very, very cool, says Anne Fremont. And I've seen it in books and online. Would love to get something wrapped this way. Yeah, I know. I feel like it's been around. Like I even think like Lush, the cosmetic shop, and then like Sephora had like a Furoshiki moment where they were like trying to have a sustainable Christmas. However, I will note that it's one of those things where unless the people in your life are also willing to continue the tradition and like fold it for themselves, if you actually just throw out the fabric, it becomes worse than paper wrapping paper. So it's sort of this like cultural change that has to happen along with just like a simple change of tradition. Who did someone said? Lisa said, my daughter, who is supposed to be in this session, gave me a gift wrapped gift before. Nice. Well, Yasmin, if she's done it before, she doesn't have to come to the session, but and that's very sweet. Okay, so 2 bottles of wine. Yes, here we have a little video. Okay, so this was like one of the simplest ones. And it looks very nice, I find. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna set it up like you did last time. I'm also curious if people have like special fabrics they want to use for this. I feel like when I found this one, it felt so perfect because it's like Christmassy colors, but also not over the top, like tacky or anything. Like it's just a really nice blend of like, it could be a poinsettia, but it's also just a little patchwork of florals. Yeah, I don't know if you have like a signature fabric, that would be pretty cool. All right, so here's my wine bottles. I'd say you want like a good distance between them because you're gonna have to bring them up together, but you also don't want it to be loose. So you might have to experiment a little bit or shift them around. But you put them down, then you bring your top wrapping over, and you want it to be a smaller triangle, so not go all the way to the top. And then you want to wrap it as tight as you can get it.
Charlotte,
Yes.
we have a question in the chat. Lisa says, is that the same size fabric?
It is. You could be using a bigger one for this, but I kind of like the small knot at the top instead of the exaggerated bow. So I've been choosing to use the 30 by 30 size fabric. And then once again, pulling it up. And then, but that's a very good question, Lisa. You're right. And there we go. I don't know. I feel like which is the angle of the camera. Here, this way, like that. And if you'd done it tighter, it would also look more like the image. But there, and of course, the thing with that technique that I really like is that as long as the objects are the same size and they're cylindrical, you could use it for wine bottles, but you could also use it if you were gifting like salt and pepper shakers or even like jars, skin creams, like anything that is approximately the same size. Okay, so this next one, honestly, I tried to make a video and it was so unclear that I was like, I'm just going to put these little graphics here, but it's for most types of abnormal shapes. And you can look on this chart and see that it's one of the simpler techniques, but it is hard to get it nice looking. I don't know why, but I've kind of struggled with it because you're making I'll demonstrate. But for this one, I'm going to be using a smaller wrapping that is, I think, 19.5 by 19.5 inches. So I can give people a few minutes to cut that out. And then the object I'm going to be using, truly an unfortunate gift, but baking soda was the right sized object. So someone in my life will get some baking soda. I also have this little felted creature that I made, and I feel like this could also be wrapped in a similar technique. If you are interested in felting, I think Ali is doing another workshop at the museum. So you can do it all at the museum. Wrap your gift, make the present. Here we go. And I apologize for this fabric. I was testing it out with a jar of, what was it? Molasses, and some of it spilled onto my fabric. So I would wash this if I was gifting. But to start this one, you want to bring in the sides of your fabric. And this is, it doesn't have to be exact, but it's just going to help guide you when you're trying to make your knots. Like that. And then you take the sides and you make a bow. And for this one, honestly, more than the others, it does matter that your knot looks nice. Yes. That. And then the same thing on the other side. This is also one that's slightly less secure. So I feel like for this gift, it's more if you're like just to somebody. Maybe less ideal for going under a tree. Okay. And the important thing when you make your knots is that you leave a hole. So on either side, I have approximately the same size hole. So it should make a little basket like this. And then you put your baking soda in the middle. And like it was demonstrated in the graphic, you're just going to put your knot one under the other and pull through. And now that I think about it, maybe it's not good for under the tree, but this could honestly be very cute hanging on the tree. And there you go. And the nice thing with this type of wrapping is that you can use it for cylindrical objects as well. Like I've seen a lot of people do this for like melons melons or like oranges or different fruit. And then I think I have one more wrapping technique that you can use on the same type of object. Oh, sorry, it's the bottom of my face. And also, if any of you want to go back to one of the ones that I've already done to do it slower, we can do that as well, because I feel like it's a fine balance between like keeping it interesting and actually being informative. All right, Jan, if you want to go back to the presentation. Thank you so much. I have full tech assistance. Okay, this one is the bowl, and it looks really simple. It is really simple, but for some reason, it's very hard to get the knots at the right spot. So you might have to practice it a few times. But what's also interesting is that you could either use it on top of an object or use the same technique to make a basket like demonstrated in the picture. I like that the basket is just filled with garlic. Like, I'm really curious. Like, it looks nice, but when I found it, I wasn't sure what holiday they were going for. All right, so the same sized, place it in the middle. And then wrapping the fabric over top. For this one, it doesn't really matter like how much you fold it, as long as the whole object is covered. So something like that. And then this is the hard part. You have to try to make a knot here to make it look like one of those doodle candy drawings. Okay, got one knot. Then you sort of push the object to be where you want it to go. So tighten it. And then you make another one. But you see, I think I messed up because this side is slightly smaller. Oh no. Oh no, look at that. Oh my goodness. Okay, and then what you would do if these were in the right spot would be that you kind of twist the edges and attach them in the middle. I guess it's okay that it's kind of sideways. It makes this really funny looking little alien basket thing. And honestly, I think it might look nicer with like a larger object, but you could use it for quite small little gifts like this one. But yeah, up to you. There's the technique before where you just do the 4 corner knots, but it's nice to have a backup option sometimes. Someone, ooh, they shared a file. Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of like those types of charts that exist, especially on Pinterest. And there's some really original designs on there. The next, okay, so I think that's it for my overview of Furoshiki techniques. I feel like if I did any more than that, oh my goodness, Lisa, you did it again. These are so successful. That looks awesome. Okay, yeah, you see there, it looks a little bit more like a basket, which is, I feel like, more the intention of that technique. But yeah, and that's a really cute fabric as well. Nice. The next thing I was thinking was, if you're up for it, I was thinking of challenging anybody who would like to have their cameras on to try to cover a pot, because in preparation for this workshop, I've tried so many times to do that as like an irregular object, and it was so challenging and it always just looked like a weird pot. So maybe if you're interested in being in this challenge, put a little emoji in the chat. You don't have to talk, you would just have to show your pot design. I'll give people a minute. If no one wants to do it, that's okay too. Okay. I'll do it. Annie. Okay. We have one participant in the pot challenge. Okay, well, I feel like I can then challenge. I'll go up against Anne. We can give each other 3.5 minutes. This feels like a slightly unfair challenging to be as a host. I feel like I should not, but okay. I'm gonna try covering this pot, and at 4:50 we will have a reveal. And Jan, you can show my creative process. Okay. I don't know how to, I think Jan, as the museum employee, you get some special say as to who wins this challenge. You see, mine is also, it's like a lollipop. It could be a hat.
Charlotte, I'm still showing your hand view. Sorry.
Oh no, nobody's been getting
Where'd you go?
a demonstration.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay, I do feel like Anne's had an advantage in the past few minutes. But here's my pot design. Jan, I think you can decide.
Oh no, I'm not going to decide a winner.
Oh.
There's no absolute way. Folks can vote in the chat if they'd like.
Thank you, Yasmin. It's a tie. What we can do next is just like look at the basic seams that are necessary if you did want to do bajaji. But before that, I was thinking of maybe showing the Furoshiki, the small Furoshiki documentary, just because it's very entertaining, and we can do that right before moving on to more of a bajaji focus. Savezna, thank you. This small documentary, I just think it's worth watching because it's such like early 2000s production. Yeah.
Is it this? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
The Japanese have traditionally used a cloth about 1 meter square called a Furoshiki to skillfully wrap and carry things. But as the custom of wearing kimono in ordinary life has gradually faded in the past few decades, use of the Furoshiki has declined. Recently, however, there's been something of a Furoshiki revival. This couple uses
It's the most
Furoshiki
amazing
in
thing.
various
Look at his guitar.
Mrs. Ishikawa uses one as a bag and another as a bandana. Her husband uses a large Furoshiki with a traditional arabesque design.
Furoshiki are very convenient and useful for wrapping anything, large or small or any shape.
As a way of helping to protect the environment. This Earth environment is now enthusiastically promoting use.
Domino, Domino.
I want to bring Furoshiki back into our daily lives.
Sorry, my door alarm.
Regard using plastic bags provided by shops as a matter of course.
Yes, I've just been tortured to look beautiful.
Knowledge.
See, look, the badge of courage.
Based on those 2 points, I'm now appealing to the public to start using Furoshiki again instead of plastic bags.
That's the design we learned. Look at that with the
The
wine bottles.
Furoshiki can provide perfect wrapping for any items, including bottles and large fruits. Mie Kohibi has come round to the view that she should carry a Furoshiki whenever she goes out shopping. She used to accept plastic shopping bags without any thought, but today she refuses. She creates an instant bag from the Furoshiki she's taken along with her. All that's required is to knot the cloth in 3 places. And 1 Furoshiki proves quite sufficient to carry all her shopping. Another advantage of Furoshiki is that they can easily be washed and used repeatedly. This is a class teaching how to wrap things in a Furoshiki. The Furoshiki is a very versatile wrapping material. For example, even one apple can be wrapped in a shape resembling a rabbit. Two Furoshiki folded like a blooming flower can be used to wrap square items. Specialist Furoshiki shops have sprung up, with prices ranging from just a few dollars to much higher prices for high-quality Furoshiki. Some Furoshiki have designs featuring popular characters. From wrapping via fashion and interior decoration to environmental conservation, the traditional wisdom of the Furoshiki has now been revived.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Like the globe turning at the end, it's so like epic. And they were like, I don't know, I like that the government was sponsoring these craft videos. But now, okay, so if you want to go briefly back to the presentation, we are going to be exploring the Flatfell seam as well as the French seam. If you had come today just for the fabric wrapping, you can leave. I will not be offended. But if you're curious about these stitching techniques, then definitely stay along. Flatfell seam, excuse me. And you've probably seen it before on like your jeans, but of course, if you use it in bujiaji, it makes that really beautiful kind of column between your fabrics. And yeah, it's a relatively simple technique that we're going to learn today. And then the other one is a French seam. And French seams, honestly, it feels like the main way I'm able to tell if like a piece of clothing is well made, if they have French seams. If you have like a serged edge, you can either like serge an edge or do a French seam so that the seam is not visible. And I made these like little tiny examples here with some very light fabric. Oh, it's my face. But you can see this is one side. And then on the other side, you have these seams that are encased. So the raw edge is encased. Oops. And then here's another example here. And these ones I obviously did on a sewing machine, but I was thinking we can do some by hand right now. And yeah, this was just that one. And then this is like a much larger one that my grandmother did as part of a quilt, which is honestly amazing because for a quilt, you don't have to finish the edges nicely. So it's just this like extra effort, I guess, for people that are truly perfectionists. But yeah, so for this, you're just going to need thread. I chose a red thread so that it'd be more visible. And then sewing needles, and then a piece of fabric. And this is just going to be a little tester. So feel free to use scraps. Has anyone been to Japan? I'm curious. When I watched that documentary, I was like, is this true or is this like Furoshiki propaganda? I wonder if people are like actually walking around with their guitars wrapped so beautifully. Okay, sorry. So I am just cutting a piece of fabric right now. And you can do the same. And then for a French seam, what you're going to do is just sew a straight running stitch. So you start by just, making a regular seam, and then we're going to be folding it over after ironing it. I hope my screen is not getting too dark. I feel like I made my setup and then now it gets dark at 4 p.m. in Toronto. So oh, thank you, Florence. Have a happy holidays as well. And before you go, you should know that the Textile Museum is going to be doing a wrapping, a fabric wrapping station. So if you'd like to have assistance or a giant array of fabrics to choose from, Jan can correct me, but I believe it's next week that you can just come up to the reuse program and bring your gifts, and there'll be people there to help you.
I'm gonna follow up with details in the chat for folks to see, to make sure I
Yeah.
get it right too.
Okay, so I got my needle. Sorry, I have one painted nail. It won't come off. I've tried every type of nail polish remover. And thread your needle. This is hard to demonstrate on a screen, but I feel like thus far you understand what's going on. Making a tiny knot. Yeah, I was talking about Furoshiki with a friend earlier today, and we were noting how like in both of our families, we don't want to buy new wrapping paper. So we just have these like trunks of crinkled old wrapping paper that our family's been like reusing for years, but I feel like this is a really nice alternative to that. Okay, so running stitch. I feel like likely most people coming to the Textile Museum teach-ins have a basic knowledge of sewing, but just in case that's not the case. Oh, okay. This is hard to tell if you can see me, but you're going in and then you are putting your needle in and out before pulling it through. And you want it to be, oh my goodness, I'm completely off the camera. Okay, well, yes, here we go. Making these little accordions, going all the way through. I'm enjoying seeing everybody's sewing rooms in the background of your videos. I feel like everybody's so set up. That's like my dream. I keep going from apartment to apartment and having to like set up these little mini sewing stations, but I feel like in my dream house or apartment, there's like a sunroom that doubles as a sewing room. Okay. Yeah, also if you're interested in buying, this kind of goes against the point, but if you did want to buy your Furoshiki wrapping, there is a Toronto-based company called Wrapper that hires really talented illustrators to make the prints that go on their cotton and silk wrappings. And then you can just buy those and they're already the perfect dimensions and all that. So far I've got some stitches. They're a little bit uneven, but it doesn't really matter because they're going to be covered. There's also something really nice about just the practice of stitching. There's an Instagram account that I recommend called The Slow Stitch, I think, where this woman just does workshops where she creates these like stitching journals where people come in and stitch every week, but it becomes sort of a collaborative art piece. Okay, I'm almost at the end of my square of fabric. Has anyone handmade any gifts this year for Christmas? need ideas. Truthfully, I just need ideas. I had exams until last week, and then now I need to start making gifts. Feel free to put them in the chat if you want to help me out. Okay, so once you have stitched over the top, very simple French seam, you are just going to open it up. You have your raw edges in the middle, and then you're going to fold it over. And then, as you can see here, if you stitch down here, there will be no raw edges visible, which is the intention. And made a sweater. Oh my God. Did you knit it? That's amazing. I learned how to use the knit machine recently, and it's like so satisfying to go back and forth, but I haven't figured out how to increase or decrease stitches, so I can only do scarves. A collage sweater. Ooh, like a patchwork? Yes. Cool. I like want to see pictures now. A baby quilt. Oh my God. That's so exciting. Is it for a friend or a child? I mean, obviously a child, but I feel like you have to be pretty close to somebody, a nephew. Yeah. Oh, that's so special. My parents took my baby quilts and then hung them up as artwork until I was a teenager. I'm curious with quilting whether it seems like I've kind of looked into the quilting community, and it seems like a lot of people like to use patterns, but I also like, I wonder, for me, there's like a part of it where I want more freedom. I feel like I want to come up with my own patterns, but I guess you can only do that once you've done the patterns and are really good at it.
No, you don't have to. You can do art quilts.
Oh yeah, just like patchwork everything together.
Yeah, but I did use instructions to do the
Oh my
puppy.
God. Oh my God, it's a puppy.
Yeah.
Wait, yawn spotlighted. I need to see it bigger.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's so special. Oh my
Oops.
God. And did you embroider the eyes, or are those just drawn on?
Right now they're taped on bits of
Okay.
fabric because I haven't done that part yet. I'm just making
Right.
the faces.
Great. And is it going to be like a bunch of faces or like a whole body? Sorry, I'm making you like get everything.
3 faces.
Yeah.
And then on the back, I'm doing like a path, like the dog has walked, with little appliques for like a fire hydrant and a tree.
Oh my God. That's
If
so
I
nice.
finish it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, why is the baby coming soon?
Oh, it's already here.
Oh, okay.
So now it's a Christmas present.
Yeah, perfect. That's fun. Okay, so now I'm just sewing down the other direction. But of course, with this seam, now it's actually going to be more visible. So you want your stitches to be roughly the same size. Who says, Zachary says, cute. Margaret says, do crazy quilting full of embroidery. Yeah, I did a project on the Gia's Bend quilters last year, and I was pretty inspired by how many different materials they use. Like there's a bunch of just like clothing in there. Ooh, Jan says our free fabric wrapping station will be right outside the museum shop from December 21st to 24th. The service will be for shop purchases only. Okay, well, there's a catch, but you're gonna want to make a shop purchase. And the volunteers are really lovely. So now these are very small stitches. Also, for anyone curious, the book I was reading from earlier, ooh, I'm gonna knock over the pot, is just called Bojaji. And I found it at the Toronto Public Library, and there was a bunch of them because I think it's just a lesser known craft. And it's also like a really nice hardcover that's like super soft. And the person that wrote it is an artist herself. And she sort of splices a lot of her own work with like different actual crafting techniques and then like the history of it as well. So I found some of the more interesting parts of the book. Oh my God. There's so many beautiful craft books. Oh, here. Like here, she like goes into the meaning of all the different colors that are used in Korea and like what they signify. And then on this page, she goes into like a deep dive of the symbolism. And on a lot of these fabrics that were used for Bojaji, they would do this like gold embossing technique that would represent different symbols that were then supposed to relate to the gift or the sentiment of the gift giver. I love all those like secret codes that existed with like flowers and fabrics and symbols. I feel like we don't have as many of those now, or I guess like the modern equivalent is emojis, but that makes me sad. Okay. Also, of course, the museum library has a bunch of books on it, and you can just like take pictures. Ooh, I actually really like the red thread over the yellow fabric. So this is what it's looking like. Oh, come into focus. And then this edge, it's not focusing, eh? Oh, there we go. And then this edge is like that. And here it's clean on the inside as well. So after doing all this, I would probably iron this down, maybe even sew it down. And if you put it up to the light, it would have that really nice stained glass effect. So just because of timing, I think I might start doing the Flatfell seam before this one's done. I'll just cut the fabric ruthlessly. For this one, it's going to start the exact same way, just straight across. Okay, so I'm doing the straight stitch. Oh, actually, I probably should have done it. I probably should have measured. Here I am, caught making a mistake. I'm gonna go with it and pretend it's supposed to be a really narrow seam. Does anyone have an object that they're like worried about being able to wrap with Furoshiki? I know this requires you to have already done your Christmas shopping, which is quite a feat 2 weeks out. Right, still just making my straight seam. It's going a bit triangular. I will make sure that Jan has the whole presentation in case you wanted to watch it after. And actually, Jan, if you go back, sorry, if you go back to the presentation again, I was just going to show that one of the people I presented earlier has a YouTube channel. And I was just going to give you the name of that YouTube channel in case you wanted to watch some of her sewing techniques. So yeah, so it's Youngming Lee Bojaji. And she, if you like, it's so cool. So she has this boat-shaped coaster that's really beautiful. And it's, I believe, a free pattern online. And then also the flower from the ring knot. whip stitch, you probably know how to do, but there's some really interesting patterns and techniques. And she's like, she only has 357 subscribers, which I find very surprising for the amount of effort and talent she has. So I also just want to get her new followers. They're also in English, which is helpful because a lot of the tutorials are not in English. Okay, so I'm done going across here. Now I misplaced my sewing scissors briefly, so I'm going to be cutting with these ones, so it might take a while. But like it was in the chart, you're going to be sewing one of your sides significantly shorter than the other so that you can wrap this piece over it to create a flat seam. Okay. Okay, new question. What is the most incredible handmade gift you've received? Okay, so I cut my one side shorter than the other. So I'm going to be wrapping this over the shorter side and then folding it down. I could do that again, maybe slower. So I have both pieces. Then I'm going to wrap this one over. It's hard to do in front of the camera. And then fold it over again. Oh, yo, yo. There we go. And then I'm going to be sewing it down here. And then that would be your flat felt seam. My best made gift was a painted jewelry box. Oh, nice. That is nice. And then like you think of them every time you use it. I feel like it's ultimately kind of selfish when I'm like, think of me every time. But painting is so hard. I have not tried to do that. Like this is such a high definition camera, you can like literally see if I'm gonna get it through the needle or not. Oh, we only have 5 minutes left. I need to speed up on the flat felt seam. Okay, here we go. Now I'm pasting down my flat felt seam. Okay, I think we're wrapping up, but thank you so much everybody for coming. I hope you found something valuable today, and I hope you go to the museum next week or just practice on your own with your own stash, because I know we all have those stashes. But yeah, this would be, I feel like I'm predicting in the next 10 years, this is going to be more than just a fad and hopefully a tradition. And it'd be really exciting if we could all be a part of that. So thank you so much. Bye, everybody.